Hi, I'm Doug Boynton, and you're listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition, where we highlight the week's news and stories happening in our region. We're back again for Week 2 of 2025, and in this week's program, the Something in the Water saga hits a detour as Virginia Beach City Council decides not to hold the festival in breach of contract. Carol Pretlow, a longtime professor at Norfolk State, passed away in December. WHRV's Another View paid tribute to her and reflected on her contributions to the show. And the Navy launched an investigation into a ship that mistakenly targeted a friendly aircraft. Is it on or is it off? That's the question surrounding Something in the Water's next steps, which are now in limbo after Virginia Beach City Council said they would not hold organizers in breach of contract. WHRO's Sienna Morales tells us more.
Festival organizers missed a key December 31st deadline set by the city to prepare for the April beachside event. So, Mayor Bobby Dyer called for a vote to give organizers 5 days to get back on track before canceling the festival. Instead, Council voted 8-2 to indefinitely suspend Dyer's 5-day proposal. A city spokesperson says now there is no published timeline for festival milestones, like lineup releases or opening ticket sales. The council will receive weekly updates about the festival's progress. Sienna Morales, WHRO News.
Also happening locally, 2 women are on Suffolk's City Council for the first time ever as new and re-elected officials took their oaths this week. WHRO's Nick McNamara fills us in.
It was an emotional afternoon for newly elected Sleepy Holborough Councilmember Ebony Wright, who was sworn in Suffolk on Thursday on her late sister's Bible.
Honoring her legacy of advocacy, love, and commitment to service. Her example continues to inspire me in my work and in this new chapter.
The Navy veteran won the seat from incumbent Roger Fawcett, becoming the first Black woman elected to Suffolk City Council. She joins already seated Chuckatuck Councilmember Shelley Butler Barlow, marking the first time 2 women are serving on Suffolk City Council simultaneously. Wright says the moment reflects the city's progress, paying homage to trailblazing council members like Linda Johnson, Suffolk's first elected mayor and first woman mayor. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
And some more Suffolk City Council news is happening as it took 3 rounds of nominations but chose to keep the same vice mayor. WHRO's Nick McNamara has more on that, too.
Nansemond Borough Councilmember Lou Ward will again serve as Suffolk's vice mayor. Speaking during the oath of office ceremony Thursday, Ward thanked God, his family, and his supporters, and told the people of Suffolk he's got their backs.
We riffle, we have problems, but somehow our leadership will find a way to make it what's best. I'm saying it again, what's best for the city of Suffolk.
Ward was selected by his colleagues on the dais after 2 other council members were nominated and rejected. Ward was first elected to Suffolk City Council in 2012. He was unopposed in the most recent election. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
The 2025 Virginia General Assembly session will get underway in earnest on Monday. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson has an overview of what to expect.
This is Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin's last year leading the state, and he's proposed a cachet of budget amendments. The proposals have to make it through the Democratically led legislature. Speaker of the House Don Scott of Portsmouth says he expects most dealings to be boring.
We'll weigh what he presents responsibly, and he has a role, and then we will do what we need to do where it matches the values of Virginians.
Scott says Virginia Democrats are focused on kitchen table issues this session, like the cost of everyday goods. The General Assembly is scheduled to adjourn February 22nd. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
Lawmakers will recess until Monday, January 13th, as the city of Richmond resolves its ongoing water problems. Heading up toward the peninsula, big news in education. Williamsburg James City County School Superintendent Olwen Herron will retire at the end of this month. She made the announcement in October after a 43-year education career. WHRO's Nick McNamara spoke with Herron about her nearly 8 years as superintendent and what she sees is next for the division.
How did you decide you wanted to retire? What went into your decision?
Certainly a decision made with a lot of mixed emotions because I love what I do every day. But I think when you start to make a decision like this, I always wanted to make the decision when I still loved what I do every day and when I felt things were going very well and it was a good time to exit. So if I look at our division right now, there's stability and principalship, no changes this year. We've got a very strong senior leadership team. We've just launched a new update to our strategic plan, Elevate 28. So that's all set for the next 4 years, just launched in October. We've seen pretty significant increases across the board in student achievement, which is exciting. Every single school has had increases and done well. All schools this year fully accredited. And all of that, not due to me, but due to the incredible work of our teachers and staff and leaders. But it just seemed like it was a good time to say, I'll think about doing something else. Obviously, I'm 66 years old, so it's time maybe to dial back a little bit from the stressful job of the superintendent and maybe look at something else in the future.
Currently, Williamsburg and James City County are working on a new joint service agreement, but did the questions around the division decoupling play any role in your decision?
Honestly, it really didn't play a role at all because what I decided when this all started is to focus on the school division and student achievement and keeping everything going and let all of that happen as a separate entity over on the side. And so that's where my focus has been. I would have loved to navigate us through that change if a change was coming, but I'm quite encouraged by the fact that conversations are going on and it may meet some kind of a resolution, but certainly didn't impact my decision at all because the stress was kind of over there and we kept communicating. Cara helped us communicate on a regular basis. Every time something would happen, we said, this is what we know and let's focus on our main job of serving students and the community.
When you look back, what was the biggest change or challenge during your tenure?
Well, the obvious one's COVID, of course. I stepped into as acting superintendent with a few weeks' notice, really, and was able to serve in that role through February of 2017, and then was appointed as superintendent. And probably the biggest challenge was COVID, but it's interesting. I think it took us all to a place that we just had to think differently and respond quickly and keep things going to the best of our ability. It's a challenge that's behind us to some extent, but I think we've been pushing our way back to some kind of normality ever since. When kids first came back, we were really trying to reset behaviour, attendance, all of those things, as well as start to rebuild our academic programme and really help students be successful. But 2 years later, I think we've come a long way and I'm very pleased with the way it's going.
What do you see is next to come for the division?
Obviously, there's continuous improvement in student achievement, and there's a building of more supports around English language learners. There's basic stuff like that is so important. I don't think we've fully explored the use of student voice in our organisation. We have to some extent. We've got a committee of student representatives, but I do think there's room to explore and include that more in some of our decision making. Really, it's going to be very interesting because if we stay together as a system, some things will stay the same, but I do think if we end up in two different school divisions, that will be the biggest challenge for the next potential superintendent. I've no doubt the board is working through the process to find someone more than capable of the job. And honestly, I'm full of hope for the future. But I think that the system is in a good place and I think it will do even better in the future. And I look forward to sitting on the sidelines and seeing what fresh ideas are brought in, because the exciting piece of change is that someone comes with fresh ideas and a fresh style of leadership. And I think every so often that's good for a school division.
That was Williamsburg James City County School Superintendent Olwen Herron. Williamsburg James City County Schools is a stakeholder in Horetta, which holds the WHRO license, and Dr. Herron sits on the WHRO board. Virginia Beach added 8 rocks to its memorial for homeless people who died in the past year. WHRO's Sienna Morales details the memorial event and plans for addressing homelessness in the new year.
Deborah Riggin, Robert Robeson.
In December, people gathered in the courtyard of Virginia Beach's Housing Resource Center to read roughly 180 names already on the memorial and add new ones.
They died while they were homeless. They did not die in their own home. And so tonight has always been a rallying call, our clarion call, that there's a lot more work to be done.
That's Pamela Shine, the Homeless Services Administrator for Virginia Beach. As for things that can be done to address homelessness in the city,
it's so important for us to invest in housing opportunities, to increase affordable housing for people who cannot afford housing here in Virginia Beach. It's very expensive.
Shine says there has been an uptick in seniors experiencing homelessness, largely among those unable to afford rent on a fixed income. 4 of the people added to the memorial in 2024 were older than 55. Sienna Morales, WHRO News.
Looking at North Carolina and ahead of the big concert season, some new developments in transparency. Ticket resale sites will now be required to disclose hidden fees in North Carolina. WUNC's Colin Campbell reports on how it's one of dozens of new law changes that took effect at the start of the new year.
The new year brings new laws, and one of them targets misleading prices listed on ticket resale websites like StubHub. The sites often make it difficult to see hidden fees and total prices until the end of the transaction. The new law says ticket resellers must, quote, clearly and conspicuously disclose the total price or face a fine. Portions of a bill passed last month over the governor's veto are also taking effect this week. One provision will require election officials to more quickly count absentee ballots, which some worry could be difficult without additional staff. Voters will also face earlier deadlines starting this year to request an absentee ballot and to correct problems with an absentee or provisional ballot, such as forgetting to provide their photo ID. I'm Colin Campbell.
Just before Christmas, the Another View team received the shocking news that iconic professor and roundtable pundit Dr. Carol Pretlow had passed away. News of her death stunned the community and the hundreds of students whose lives she impacted during her 38 years teaching political science and world affairs at Norfolk State. Another View paid tribute to Carol, reflecting on her many contributions to the region and to the world.
It's hard to even speak when someone who touched our lives so significantly leaves us. That was Carol Pretlow. Carol had been a respected voice on the Another View Roundtable since its inception on television in 2009. And when we transitioned to radio, Carol came with us and remained an insightful and engaging part of our Another View family for 15 years. During her many trips to WHRO, she was usually greeted by WHRO receptionist Deborah Clark, who remembers her this way.
Dr. Pretlow was always kind and compassionate and caring to me, and she had such a beautiful spirit. She always had the same demeanor when I saw her. I enjoyed our talks when she came to the station, and she truly loved what she did. She talked about her NSU students and how remarkable they are. She had a quiet strength about her. She will be missed, and she truly was a hero among us.
It was Carol's vast knowledge of the world of politics that brought her to us, and it was that broad knowledge that she shared with her students for close to 40 years at Norfolk State University, teaching political science and world affairs to hundreds. Deborah Elliott was one of them.
She just was very into us as students. She was willing to help us to get our degrees. She just mentored all of us. If we needed her after hours, if we needed to talk, she just sat there when class was over and just talked to us, just like a mom, a mentor. She just loved on us. She took several students to New York, the ones that were ready to go on to be lawyers. She had her past students come in to talk to us. She also had other political people come in to talk to us about different things and just how we should, when we do study law or do go into politics, how we are to focus on things and how we are to research things. She just was so professional.
Often describing herself as a country girl from Smithfield, Carol Pretlow was much more. She graduated from Georgie Tyler High School in 1965 at the age of 16. She would go on to graduate from Fisk University with a BA in political science. New Journal and Guide Chief Reporter Emeritus Leonard Colvin says Carol's path would veer slightly, leading her to work as a fashion writer, a poet, and a model, but would eventually bring her to NSU.
Before she got to Norfolk State, she tried to compile as much experience in the real world relative to civil rights and thinking and education as she could. She got to NSU in 1986, and William P. Robinson took her under his wing and taught her how to run a class and engage the students, get them talking and get them debating. And that was basically her format throughout her teaching career at Norfolk State University.
Carol would earn an MA in Mass Communications from Norfolk State and later a JD in International Law from American University.
And it was an advanced degree. That's how she wrote all those secret documents and talking papers for the Defense Department. She had a degree in international law.
Her vast knowledge would net her engagements to share her expertise as an adjunct professor at the National Defense University Joint Forces Staff College and at the W.E.B. Du Bois Institute for African American Studies at Harvard University. Carol never hesitated to speak her mind, be it a one-on-one conversation or an Another View broadcast. For example, during this 2003 roundtable discussion, she quickly shared her take on a member of Congress yelling out during the president's State of the Union address.
And I was like, okay, girlfriend, the first line of defense is always to act with class. You have the responsibility, this is my mom saying, to act with class even when others do not. So you don't have to agree with him, but do respect the fact that he is President of the United States.
Dr. Carol Pretlow left her mark on this region and her country, not only through her own work, but through the many students she mentored who are now impacting their communities, this nation, and the world. She will truly be missed. But her legacy and what she poured into so many will live on. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
A Virginia Beach grand jury has indicted 3 sheriff's deputies in connection with the death of Rollin Hill, who died in custody last June. Sienna Morales reports on what's next.
Deputies Eric Baptiste, Michael Kidd, and Kevin Wilson face second-degree murder and other charges. Hill was arrested for trespassing on June 4th and taken to the Virginia Beach Correctional Center. Shortly after his arrest, Hill had a medical emergency and was taken to Centera Princess Anne Hospital, where he later died. The medical examiner determined Hill's death was caused by asphyxia due to restraint involving neck and torso compression. In October, the Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office fired 5 deputies connected to the case. Sienna Morales, WHRO News.
Some religious organizations want to put their faith into action by using their property for affordable housing. WVTF's Brad Kuttner has more on state legislation that may support those efforts.
74,000 acres of land, twice the size of Richmond City. That's how much land faith communities own in the Commonwealth, according to a report by Housing Forward Virginia and the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. Sheila Hurley-Hennessy is with Virginia Interfaith.
A lot of faith communities are looking at their land as an incredibly valuable resource and want to use it to benefit the community.
To that end, her group and some Virginia legislators are looking to improve on past failed efforts that could help faith communities develop their land into affordable housing. Hurley-Hennessy said there are 15 such projects completed and another 40 or so in the pipeline. But as congregations shrink or look to exercise their faith through housing those in need, the legislature could make the process easier. Senator Ghazala Hashmi had an effort last year that would have given faith communities the ability to build affordable housing by right, but it failed to get out of committee. This year, she's back with an effort that asks localities to incorporate strategies into their comprehensive plans that would aid congregations. Whether or not such an effort will succeed in a short session ahead of a statewide election remains to be seen. In Richmond, I'm Brad Kuttner.
The Navy is investigating the first incident in decades where a Navy ship mistakenly targeted a friendly aircraft. The cruiser USS Gettysburg accidentally fired upon an FA-18 fighter December 22nd. It happened just after the Gettysburg returned to sea following a controversial and costly rebuilding effort. WHRO's Steve Walsh reports for the American Homefront Project.
Video released by the Pentagon shows the U.S. continuing to target Houthi positions in Yemen a week after friendly fire from the USS Gettysburg shot down a Navy fighter. The rebel group has been harassing international shipping since the start of the war in Gaza in 2023. Details of the accident remain murky, but the 2 FA-18 crew members ejected seconds before the missile struck. They suffered minor injuries. The ship entered the Red Sea outfitted with the latest Aegis weapons systems, which monitor the airspace like air traffic control, as well as handles the weapons system, said Stephen Wills, a former naval officer who works with the Center for Maritime Strategy.
Lots going on, and it all is supposed to be coordinated by Aegis. Something must have happened, whether that's a computer problem, an electrical problem, or a human problem, or a combination of all of those.
At the time of the incident, the newly revamped Gettysburg had been in the Red Sea for less than a week. It's the first ship to deploy after finishing a controversial years-long program to extend the life of the aging Ticonderoga-class cruisers. The ships provide air defense. Congress ordered the Navy to keep the cruisers in the fleet, though the ships suffered years of deferred maintenance after the Navy heavily used them over the last 20 years. Shelby Oakley is with the Government Accountability Office.
They kind of went into this effort expecting them to not be in great shape, but then realized it was even worse than expected. And then they kind of took a number of actions that I think contributed to the cruisers even getting in worse shape throughout the effort.
In a recently released report on the modernization, GAO found the Navy cut the number of inspections in half. They didn't find contractors for substandard work even after a gun mount on Gettysburg was initially installed at the wrong height. The ship's crew told investigators they found more problems with the electrical systems and propulsion as they prepared to deploy in September, Oakley says.
Some of the missteps that the Navy took continued to contribute to continued maintenance problems and continued lack of understanding about, what it would take to bring these ships back.
GAO concluded the Navy wasted $1.8 billion when 8 of the 11 cruisers were mothballed before finishing the maintenance. The Navy told GAO that it hasn't committed to deploying the 34-year-old Gettysburg again after the end of its current mission. Accidental shootdowns are rare. Wills says the last one happened in 1988 when the cruiser USS Vincennes, equipped with an earlier version of Aegis, misidentified an Iranian commercial airliner, killing everyone on board.
The people watching the display thought they were looking at a descending F-14 on a strike attack against their ship, but actually it was obviously the Airbus airliner instead. So what you see on the screen can sometimes be deceptive.
And with the proliferation of drones and anti-ship missiles, he says protecting commercial shipping in the Red Sea has become even more challenging than during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s.
There's definitely the potential that they were seeing drones, thought they were seeing cruise and or ballistic missiles both. And that's a very complicated threat environment.
Even so, FA-18s are supposed to show a distinct radar signature, Will says. According to a defense official, the Pentagon is not providing additional details on the downed fighter, citing the pending investigation. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Steve Walsh, Sienna Morales, Nick McNamara, Michelle Hankerson, and Lisa Godley, WUNC's Colin Campbell, and WVTF's Brad Kuttner. Thanks, as always, to Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed. You can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton. Stay safe. Be well.